Skip it up and that up.
So Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford doesn't seem too impressed with the Xbox Series X. Or Xbox. Or whatever the hell you want to call it. Let's get into it.
This video is being brought to you by Satisfy Gaming. Make playing your Switch in portable mode super ergonomic with the Satisfy Gaming grips. They also have case and grip bundles that let you keep the grip on your Switch and store it safely in their high quality cases. These grips make using your Switch in portable mode as comfortable as a Pro controller. Use the code ReviewTech10 to save 10% off your entire order. Link below in the description.
So I have touted for this upcoming generation, the 9th generation of consoles, that I feel fairly impressed with the specs that the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, whatever the hell you want to call it, I'm impressed with the specs that they're going to have. They're going to have Zen 2 architecture. I have Zen 2 chips in a couple of my PCs. I have a 3900X and a 3700X, and they're both absolute beasts. They're going to be based on the Navi GPUs that AMD just came out with, and they're also going to have ray tracing tech in them, ray tracing hardware in them, which the 5700 XT, I actually own one of those cards that doesn't have ray tracing tech built inside of it. They just sound like they're going to be really impressive consoles. More impressive than when we went from the 7th generation, the 360 and PS3, to the PS4 and Xbox One. But Randy Pitchford doesn't seem too impressed with the Xbox Series X. But before I get into what he actually said to Phil Spencer or replied to him with on Twitter, I'm going to read something that Digital Foundry wrote about next-gen consoles and transistor counts, so on and so forth. Now, just a side note here, Moore's Law says that transistor density should double every 2 years, but that seems to have slowed down. So that's kind of leading into what Digital Foundry has to say here. Let me read it to you. Transistor density is unlikely to have doubled, meaning that the primary route forward for increased performance is frequency, and lots of it. Increasing clock speeds gets more performance and therefore more value from the silicon, but the harder you push, the more power you need. And the more power you need, the more heat you produce, necessitating innovation in terms of thermal dissipation. Now, Phil Spencer actually replied to the Eurogamer article on Twitter, and this is what he had to say. Digital Foundry does good work. As Moore's Law slows and our performance ambitions increase, it leads to design innovation. Software innovations like VRS will also be critical. Xbox Series X rewrites the rules of console design, and the power level should be extraordinary. But Randy Pitchford, again, the Gearbox CEO, replied to Phil Spencer's reply to the Digital Foundry article, and he doesn't seem that impressed, and he thinks that Phil Spencer is making excuses. Okay, but anyway, let me read to you what he said. Is Moore's Law slowing down? How many transistors in the Series X? What if Moore's Law is like the 4-minute mile? Your ambitious message for the Xbox One X was inspiring, but for Series X, well, this feels like more of an excuse. Now, people got on Randy for saying that to Phil Spencer, which I kind of get because I've been hearing nothing but good things about the hardware that's inside of both Sony and Microsoft's next-gen consoles. But he came out and said, look, I have no ill will towards Phil Spencer. This is exactly what he had to say. He replied to someone first, then he kind of said, look, I love Phil. But anyway, his first tweet said, there's nothing more than my comment. I love Phil and I'm grateful for his leadership. I want the next Xbox to be as powerful as it can be, and I want to hear platform leadership carrying aspirational and ambitious technology goals that benefit customers and developers. Now, a lot of people think that Randy's throwing shade at the next-gen Xbox because there's a Gearbox published PS5 exclusive coming out called Godfall, and people thought that's maybe why Randy was throwing shade at the Xbox Series X, but he actually defends against that too. This is what he had to say about that. I'm an Xbox gamer. Gamertag, Deval Magic. If I could wave a magic wand, Xbox and PlayStation will be both incredibly powerful and keep parity with one another. I think Sony and Microsoft should team up, actually. Now look, I heard even before this that Moore's Law has slowed because it's the transistors on chips and processors are getting so small that it's tougher to make them even smaller and make the fabrication process even smaller and squeeze more transistors together to get more power out of CPUs and GPUs, so on and so forth. But the Zen 2 architecture that's being used inside the next-gen consoles is a huge step up from the terrible Jaguar cores that were both in the PS4, Xbox One, PS4 Pro, and Xbox One X. So look, I understand Randy Pitchford's the CEO of Gearbox, and he may have the dev kits in his office, and he may be talking from some first-hand experience. But this is a first that I'm hearing this. Everyone else I've heard it, they're impressed with the tech that's in the next-gen consoles, and it's going to be a substantial leap. As a matter of fact, there have been some rumors out there from insiders that this may be the biggest leap in console power ever, like from one generation to another. So, look, Randy is known for just kind of talking out of his ass, kind of like how I used to be on Twitter.
And this one is just like I can't quite make sense of what the little thumbnail image is, so I'm looking into it, and it's a woman who is masturbating, and when she has some experience that appears as if she's having an orgasm, a huge amount of fluid comes out of her vagina. She has some kind of an explosive orgasm.
Hey, Jay.
This is not a sex worker. This is a magician.
I used to type before I thought about what I was saying and then regret it later. Kind of seems like Randy follows my 2015, 2016 playbook. But I don't know. This is the first I heard of that, so I don't think he's correct. But we'll have to wait and see. I think Dr. Trey was saying on Twitter, maybe he knows something about the chips. Maybe they're using a really cut down version of Zen 2, an 8-core processor. But even if they use a Ryzen 5 3600, a 6-core CPU in next-gen consoles, it still would be, the per-core performance would be a huge leap than the Jaguar cores in previous generations. So I'm not sure. I don't know, man. I don't know where he's getting this from, but I think next-gen, from what I've been reading, and I've been reading a lot, seems like it's going to be an impressive boost from both Sony and Microsoft. So this may be Randy Pitchford pulling another Randy Pitchford. I got love for you, Randy, but you just remind me of me from 4 years ago where you just type whatever you feel and regret it later. This is Rich at Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.
A huge amount of fluid comes out of her vagina.